There are places on Earth so unusual that they feel like they belong on another planet. This is one of them. At exactly 1 p.m., I stepped outside expecting at least a little daylight. Instead, I was greeted by complete darkness. Not sunset darkness, not storm cloud darkness, midnight darkness. The kind of darkness that makes your brain question what time it is. The strange part, this wasn't the middle of the night. It was the middle of the day. I had arrived in Svalbard, one of the northernmost inhabited places on Earth, where the sun completely disappears during winter. For months, the people here live without a sunrise, a sunset, or even a glimpse of daylight. And I wanted to know one thing. How do people survive living in darkness for months at a time? My journey began in London. The farther north my plane traveled, the more I felt like I was leaving the familiar world behind. The passengers around me looked prepared for an Arctic expedition. Massive jackets, thermal boots, professional winter gear. Meanwhile, I had somehow forgotten to pack a proper coat. As the plane crossed into the Arctic Circle, I watched what would become my final sunset for several days. The sky glowed orange for a few brief moments before disappearing beneath the horizon. I had no idea how much I would miss something I normally take for granted. Hours later, the aircraft descended into darkness. Outside the window, there was almost nothing to see, just blackness. Welcome to Svalbard. The airport felt strangely simple. No crowds, no chaos, no long security lines. Within minutes, I was sitting inside a taxi heading toward town. My driver happened to be from the Philippines. She laughed when I told her how surprised I was. Apparently, Filipinos have a reputation for being everywhere, even at the edge of the Arctic. When I asked how she dealt with months without sunlight, she explained that the hardest part wasn't the darkness itself. It was the transition, going from endless summer sunlight to endless winter darkness. Your body never quite knows what to do. That answer stayed with me because honestly, mine didn't either. My apartment looked comfortable enough. Warm lighting, soft furniture, a small kitchen, everything I needed. But something felt wrong. The photos online had shown bright windows and daylight views. Now those same windows looked like black mirrors. Outside was nothing but darkness. The season I had arrived during is known as polar night. For weeks, the sun never climbs above the horizon. Tomorrow would officially be the darkest day of the year. Not that anyone here could really tell the difference. That first evening, I wandered into town searching for dinner. The streets were quiet. Snow crunched beneath my shoes. Warm lights glowed from windows, creating little islands of comfort in the darkness. I found a small restaurant and ordered a local specialty. As I sat eating, I realized something strange. Without daylight, time felt meaningless. My body insisted it was midnight. My watch insisted it wasn't. For the first time in my life, I couldn't trust my own instincts. Before bed, I did something unusual. I used a red light instead of normal room lighting. Apparently, people here rely heavily on artificial light to maintain healthy sleep cycles. Without sunlight, your brain loses one of its most important signals. Suddenly, something as simple as turning on a lamp becomes incredibly important. I climbed into bed expecting a restless night. Instead, I slept almost 10 hours. And honestly, I probably could have slept longer. The next morning, I opened my eyes and immediately felt confused. What time was it? 3 a.m.? 8 a.m.? Noon? There was absolutely no way to know. The darkness outside looked identical. I eventually checked my phone. Late morning. My body refused to believe it. One thing became clear almost immediately. Darkness changes your energy. I wasn't tired exactly. But I wasn't motivated either. It felt like my brain was permanently stuck in evening mode. The locals know this problem well. That's why many of them use bright lights indoors, exercise regularly, and follow strict routines. Without those habits, it's easy to lose track of yourself. So I forced myself to visit the local gym. The walk there introduced me to another reality of life in Svalbard: polar bears. There are more polar bears here than people. That isn't an exaggeration. Outside town, carrying a rifle isn't optional. It's necessary. Polar bears don't view humans as threats. They view humans as food. Suddenly, my walk felt significantly less relaxing. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every empty street felt a little eerie. Thankfully, I made it to the gym without becoming lunch. Inside, the building was bright, almost aggressively bright. The lights felt powerful enough to replace the missing sun. For a few hours, everything felt normal. People were exercising, talking, loving, living their lives. It reminded me that humans are remarkably adaptable, even in the most extreme places. Later that day, I started talking to residents. I wanted honest answers, not tourist answers. Real answers. One teenager admitted she was constantly tired during winter. Another resident told me he loved the darkness because the endless summer sunlight was equally exhausting. A shop owner who had lived there for decades confessed that each winter seemed harder than the last. Some people clearly struggled. Others seemed perfectly content. The common theme wasn't sunlight, it was community. The people who stayed connected to friends, hobbies, and routines appeared to cope much better. The people who isolated themselves seemed to suffer the most. As evening arrived, although it technically looked exactly the same, I found myself reflecting on my own mood. I hadn't seen the sun in days. And honestly, I wasn't feeling great. Nothing terrible had happened. I wasn't unhappy. I just felt slower. Like someone had quietly turned down the volume on my motivation. The experience gave me a completely new appreciation for sunlight. Most of us never think about it. It's simply there. Until it isn't. The following morning, I woke up determined to explore more. I walked toward the harbor. Snow covered the ground. The sea stretched into darkness. Everything felt calm, silent, almost frozen in time. That's when I began understanding why some people actually love living here. The darkness forces you inward. There are fewer distractions, fewer demands, less pressure to constantly move. It encourages reflection, creativity, stillness. In many ways, it felt like the world had pressed pause. During my final day, I visited cafes, bookstores, and local gathering spots. Everywhere I went, I noticed the same thing: warm lights, comfortable spaces, people creating little pockets of happiness against the darkness outside. The Norwegians even have a concept for this: a feeling of coziness, comfort, and appreciating simple moments. And honestly, it might be the secret to surviving here. Not fighting the darkness, accepting it, working with it, finding beauty within it. Then something happened that made the entire trip worth it. As I walked through town one final evening, I looked up. Green lights stretched across the sky. The northern lights, at first they appeared faint. Then they exploded into motion, dancing, shifting, flowing across the darkness above me. For several minutes I stood completely frozen. Not because of the cold, because of the beauty. Suddenly I understood why so many people stay. When you spend weeks surrounded by darkness, moments like this become unforgettable. Eventually, it was time to leave. As the plane lifted off, I watched Svalbard disappear beneath the clouds. The darkness slowly faded. Hours later, sunlight finally appeared on the horizon. I never thought seeing the sun would make me emotional. But after only a few days without it, I genuinely felt grateful. The warmth, the light, the color. Everything felt different. More valuable, more alive. Svalbard taught me something unexpected. Humans can adapt to almost anything. But adaptation doesn't mean immunity. The darkness changes people. Some learn to embrace it. Others struggle against it. Most find a balance somewhere in between. Could I live there permanently? Honestly, I don't think so. I miss daylight too much. But spending a few days in a place where the sun never rises made me appreciate something I had ignored my entire life. The next time sunlight hits your face, take a moment to notice it, because somewhere on Earth, there are people waiting months just to see it again.